Okay, we have some validation going on here because we're certainly checking to see if a username or email address has already been taken, but we're not really validating against a password. We're leaving this up to identity to tell us that the password is not complex enough. And what we'll do, just to prevent any bad data from going up, because a blank username or email will be accepted at least once in our API, we need to make sure that this is validated before we allow a user to register. So what we'll do, we'll go back to VS Code, and what we can use for our identity objects is we can use data annotations. Now we're using Fluent validation in our application project, but since we're confining identity to our API, there's no reason why we can't just use data annotations in our register DTO. So what we can do, very simply, is specify required for the display name, and we'll bring in using system component model data annotations, and then we can say that the email address is both required and that it's a type of email address. For the password, we'll again say that this is required, but what we'll also add is a regular expression. And what we can do inside here is specify the rules that match what we're doing inside our API. Now, our API by default needs a number, a lowercase, uppercase, and a non-alphanumeric character, but we turned off the non-alphanumeric character earlier. So all we need is a regular expression that tells us that one of the characters must be a number, one must be a lowercase, and one must be an uppercase. And we'll also set some minimum maximum lengths on this as well. So what we can do to achieve this is a regular expression is a string, and we'll open up some parentheses, and we'll say question mark equals, and then period, and then asterisk, which represents any character in our password. And then we want to specify that one of them needs to be a number, and we can do that by saying \\d. The next one will say question mark equals, period, asterisk, and then we can open up square brackets and say lowercase a to lowercase z, and this will mean that at least one of our characters needs to be in lowercase, and then we'll open up parentheses again, and we'll say question mark equals, period, asterisk, and then in square brackets we can say uppercase a dash z, and that means at least one of our characters needs to be in uppercase, and then we'll add a period and then curly brackets, and then we can say 4,8, which means our password needs to be between 4 and 8 characters long, and then we finish off with a $. And this represents our regular expression for a complex password. Now we'll add an error message to this, and we'll just say password must be complex. Obviously you can add more detail in this, but to keep things simple, just so that we see that this regular expression has been hit, we're just going to say password must be complex. And for the username, we're just going to specify that this is required. So if we go back to Postman and we can test list functionality, let's check the register user with a validation error, and we're missing off the display name here. And if we click send, then we see the display name field is required. And if we go and register a user with a weak password and click on send again, then this time we get the password must be complex. So now that we've handled validation, the next thing we'll take a look at is how we can get hold of the currently logged in user and return the user object. And we'll take a look at that next.